Most people watching football are pretending. Not because they're dumb, not because they don't care, but because football feels like this giant secret language nobody ever fully explains. So people just nod along when someone says terrible coverage, bad clock management. Meanwhile, you're sitting there thinking, I have no idea what any of this actually means. And here's the truth. You do not need to memorize a playbook to understand football. You don't need to know like 97 formations, and you definitely do not need to yell at the TV like somebody's unemployed uncle. You just need a few core concepts because once you understand like the handful of terms that actually matter in football, the game completely changes. You stop watching the chaos and you start seeing strategy. And honestly, like that's what makes football really fun. I know that might sound crazy right now, but it does get really fun. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the only 7 football terms you actually need to know to sound, more importantly, and feel confident, to follow the game and, I don't know, finally understand what everyone else is reacting to. So this is for the newer people to football, those people who feel lost during conversations, and honestly, people who've been watching for years and still secretly don't actually get what's going on. And no, we are not turning this into a coaching clinic. I'm going to explain these in just like plain English with real examples so you can actually use them during a game. By the end of this video, you're going to hear the announcers like say things and you're going to think, yeah, I know exactly what that means now. And you're going to feel smarter. Yay. And that's where confidence starts, when you actually know what's going on. Because, like, let's be real. There is a huge difference between just watching football and actually understanding what's happening. When you don't know the language, the game feels random. Like every play looks the same and every reaction from the crowd just feels confusing. Like you'll stand up when everyone stands up or clap when everybody claps, but you don't know what the heck is going on. And you end up waiting for someone else to explain why something mattered. But once you know just a few key terms, everything will slow down and you can predict this, like the decisions that are going to be made. You can follow momentum swings, which is really fun. And you can actually join the conversation instead of sitting there just hoping nobody asks you a question that you might not know the answer to. And like I said, weirdly, it makes the whole experience a lot more fun. And who doesn't want more fun? I know I do. Because when you're having more fun, you're invested in the strategy and not just the score that you see. Okay, so I'll tell you a quick story to make this all come full circle. I have a friend and she just started watching football only because her boyfriend absolutely loves it. And she's like, I want to spend time with him because he's cute. So every Sunday, he'd be like pacing around the living room, yelling random things, at least they felt random to her, at the television, like, why would you go cover 2 there? Or, I don't know, like, that's a terrible read. And she would just like smile politely. And she was secretly thinking, like, sir, I barely know where the first down line comes from. So one day, she came over to my house just to watch a game with me. And I think, it was late in the fourth quarter. And the offense is driving down the field. And everybody's super stressed because it was their team or our team. And the announcer says something like, this is huge because now it's 3rd and long. And she leaned over and she whispered at me. She's like, was that bad? Why was it bad? And I paused the TV because I was like, wait a minute. Instead of making her feel dumb, I just explained that it's because the defense knows that they probably have to pass because they have a long way to go. And that was it. It was just this tiny moment. But for her, suddenly the game started making sense. And then I started teaching her a few more things, and she learned what a blitz was and what the red zone meant and then what a turnover actually represented, like from a strategic standpoint. And so she went from silently eating the chips on the couch to confidently saying things like, they're playing too conservative right now, which, by the way, made her boyfriend give her like the heart eyes. He was like, "What? How do you know this?" I mean, that always feels good, right? But the funny part is that she didn't suddenly become a football expert. No, she just learned a handful of terms that sort of just unlocked the rest of the game. And that's what we're going to do today. So maybe you're thinking, okay, but I'm still probably going to forget all of this, which totally normal. I get it. But most people think that football knowledge is about memorization. I promise you, it is not memorization. It's actually just pattern recognition. You start to see things over and over again, and you're like, oh, I get that. So you don't need to remember every rule in the rule book. You just need to understand that, like, what teams are trying to accomplish and what creates pressure and what changes the momentum in a game. And that's it. So once you hear these terms a few times during real games, your brain will start like connecting all the dots just automatically. So definitely do not pressure yourself to become a football analyst overnight or anytime. you're just you're just going to learn some of the language of the game. Okay. First thing. Ready? This is first down. If you learn nothing else from this video, just learn this. A team gets 4 chances, which are called downs, to move the ball at least 10 yards. If they succeed, they get a new set of downs. So a new set of 4 downs to then again move 10 more yards. That's called a first down. This is basically the heartbeat of football. It's the only thing that really matters most of the time because everything revolves around it. And once a team gets like stuck in situations like 3rd and 12th, which just means it's their third chance to get to the 10 yards. But sometimes they make a mistake and they go backwards or they get a penalty. So if it says like 3rd and 12 or 4th and long, which just means, a lot more than like 7 or 8 yards, the defense has a huge advantage. I like to think of it, this totally reminds me of college. Hopefully we can all relate to this and I'm not the only one. But you remember trying to finish like a giant group project before, like the night before it's due, and you're just desperate. So you're making like really rushed decisions and you kind of become predictable because everything's under pressure and you don't have time to think. So it's literally the same thing in football. So when you hear an announcer say they need to stay ahead of schedule or something along those lines, what they really mean is to avoid bad situations that make the offense make really obvious and rushed decisions. And this matters because like football is really a game of information, which means that like the more predictable they can become, like the more stressed out they are, because when you're stressed, you just make like the easy decision. Sometimes it's hard to think of like creative things. So if the team becomes predictable, it's easier for the defense to stop you. So have you ever noticed like if a team gets just a few yards, all of a sudden they celebrate and you're like, well, they didn't get a touchdown. Why are you celebrating? Why is everybody clapping at just like 5 or 6 yards? And the reason is because if it's second down, the second try, and 4 yards, that feels way different than if it's the second down and 10 yards to go. So if you've ever sat there during a game thinking, wait, what should I actually say right now? I made a freebie for you. You can download it below, and it's called Game Day Confident. It's this super practical guide with I don't know, like 5 things that you can say and exactly when to say them. So, you know, or you more like you sound like you know the game, and it's not fake because I'm gonna give you the context. It's not like, "Oh, let's just try hard." It's just staying confident because sometimes all you need to know is just a little bit of language and the context behind it to stop feeling lost. So it's free. Anyway, okay. Number 2, the red zone. The red zone is the area inside the opponent's 20-yard line when you're getting close to a touchdown. And once a team gets there, everything changes, right? Like the field gets shorter, the defense gets tighter, and scoring actually becomes harder than people think. And that's why you'll hear, what will announcers say? They'll say things like, they move the ball well, but they struggle in the red zone, which means that the team can drive the ball all the way down the field, but they can't finish. Sounds a little relatable. Just kidding. Honestly, this is one of the most relatable things in sports. And not only that, I mean, there's a whole network called the Red Zone. It's where things exciting happen. So that's why it's so fun to know this term. Because when you get close to success, and there's a big difference between getting close and actually like closing a deal, right? Those are 2 very different skills. It's not really great just to get close. You want to finish the deal. And the red zone is basically, it's just like pressure in physical form with less space and faster, quicker decisions. There's higher stakes. So when a quarterback throws an interception in the red zone, that's like brutal because scoring opportunities, they're precious. I mean, they don't come all that often. And when you understand that, you stop just reacting to touchdowns and you start reacting when a team has different field position and different momentum. And I feel like that's when you know you're like leveling up as a viewer. Okay, third term, blitz. Okay, I know this one sounds complicated. You're like, what the heck is a blitz? But I promise you, it's actually not. A blitz simply means that the defense sends extra players to pressure the quarterback. Not more players on the field. They can still only have 11, but just more pressure. That's it. So normally in any given play, the defenses just balance. They have to cover the receivers who are looking to get the ball and rushing the quarterback to give them pressure. But during a blitz, they make a gamble. They're basically saying, like, we're going to attack fast and try to force the quarterback into a mistake because there's a lot of pressure. So, like, um, have you ever been, I don't know, okay, have you ever been late to a meeting or anything really, and all of a sudden you have like 6 text messages pop up and you can't, like, you're like, oh shoot, I need to answer all of these at once. So you're just like boom, 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 texting. And then you realize after the fact that you sent the wrong message to the wrong person. Yeah, been there, done that. But that's what happens, right? The pressure changes how careful you are in your decision making. And that's what the defense wants because, I mean, the quarterbacks are incredible when they're comfortable. I mean, I always send the right text to the right person when I'm have one text to send and no pressure. But when you're rushed and everything speeds up, throws can get sloppy by the quarterback. Like the reads get a lot harder and mistakes happen. But here's the interesting part, because a blitz is actually really risky because if the offense recognizes it quickly and there may not be enough defenders left that are covering the receivers down the field, that's when you'll usually hear people say something like, that was a perfectly timed blitz. And what they really mean is that the defense created chaos at the exact right moment, or they didn't, like in my earlier example. And there was a guy open downfield, and the quarterback got it off quick enough, and they have a huge play, which is awesome. So there's risk and reward depending on if it's successful. So, football is just about like controlled chaos. Bunch of people running around, I know, but it really is controlled chaos and just strategy. Term number 4 is turnover. A turnover is when a team loses possession of the ball. So that's usually through like an interception or a fumble. And emotionally, this is one of the biggest swings in football because like a possession matters so much because can you imagine spending like 8 game minutes driving down the field only to lose the ball instantly? I mean, that's devastating, right? Like turnovers completely change momentum. It changes the energy, the confidence, and obviously the field position because now the other team has the ball. And this is why coaches obsessed over protecting the football because even great teams can lose games from careless mistakes of not protecting the football. So you'll hear people say things like they're winning the turnover battle and it matters. And yeah, statistically, they're right. Teams that protect the football usually do win more games because football is, yeah, it's partly talent, of course, but it's also discipline. Okay, number 5, play action. Now, this one is like one of the sneaky concepts, like the trick plays in football. A play action is just when the quarterback pretends to hand the ball off just to trick the defense. So the fake run pulls defenders forward for just a second. And sometimes that basically opens up one of the receivers further down the field. And sometimes just that like 1 second of pulling them forward can change everything. It's basically like misdirection. So like if you've ever, somebody's been like a point behind you and you turn around, like you instinctively look and your brain, you're reacting to the logic. Like, yeah, I'm going to look at the person who's pointing behind me. But the defense is, it's essentially doing the same thing. They're looking at the supposed shiny object of the fake, the fake ball that's going with the runner. So once you start spotting play action during the games, you suddenly realize how psychological football it really is. It's, it's magic and fun. It's not just like strength and speed, it's manipulation too. It's like timing and like I've always said, like pattern recognition, which I think makes the sport way more interesting. Okay, number 6, flag. This one matters because people constantly like have huge reactions over flags during football, right? A flag just means that the official has called a penalty. And most of the time, it's usually for something like holding, pass interference, offsides, false start. There's a lot of them, but those are kind of the main ones that seem to get called the most. And penalties can completely change a game. A team can have an amazing play and suddenly lose 10 yards because somebody moved too early before they were supposed to. Or a defense can stop a huge play and then they hand the offensive first down because they committed a penalty. And this is why people get so emotional about flags because it instantly swings the momentum. You think you've got this great play, whether you're on offense or defense, and you're cheering, and then you see that yellow flag come out, and you're like, son of a gun, it just ruined it. I promise, to be fair, not every flag like means total disaster. I mean, sometimes teams even like strategically make a penalty. Like they'll do it on purpose. Like for example, a defense might intentionally commit a penalty to prevent a touchdown. And that's worth it sometimes. You take the yards because you didn't want the touchdown. That was way worse. So once you understand that, you can stop seeing those flags as just like random interruptions in the game, and you can start seeing them as it's like part of the chess match back and forth. And you'll hear the announcers, they'll say stuff like they're killing themselves with penalties, which just means that the mistakes are preventing them from staying consistent and going down the field, or preventing the going down the field. And I mean, honestly, that's in life too, right? Like it's usually not just one giant mistake that hurts you. There are those, but in general, it's, repeated little mistakes that kill your momentum. Like, ladies, if you're ever on a diet and you consistently eat the chocolate cake every night after a good day of eating, that's going to kill your momentum for your diet, right? I'm not guilty, I swear. That wasn't me. I didn't eat the cake. Okay, last one. Number 7, interception. An interception is when the defense catches a pass that was intended for the offense. Emotionally, this one is the biggest, oh no, moments in football because quarterbacks are trying to make fast decisions under pressure. And sometimes they misread the coverage, and sometimes the defender just makes a ridiculously good play. Sometimes the receiver runs the wrong route. This one is always the most interesting to me because everyone always wants to blame a quarterback for an interception, but it's not always the quarterback's fault. I mean, a lot of times they'll, hit their chest and you're like, oh, okay, that was that guy's fault. Sometimes the receiver will go like this or whatever, but sometimes the receiver does run the wrong route. And you can imagine it's going so fast that the quarterback needs to release the ball long before the receiver is running his route. So if he's supposed to turn left and he turns right, that ball is not going to the right player and it's an interception. So just know that you don't always have to blame the quarterback. But when the defense does catch it, the possession instantly changes. And interceptions are huge because they don't just stop the offense. They often create scoring opportunities for the other team immediately. In fact, if they intercept the ball and run it all the way back down to the other end zone, that is called a pick six. That's a bonus term for today. But it's a massive, massive momentum swing. So you'll hear commenters say stuff like reading the quarterback's eyes because defenders are constantly trying to predict where the ball is going. It's just like it's anticipation. And that's why there's film study so that they can start to recognize patterns because heck yeah, they want an interception. So once you understand interceptions and you start realizing how difficult it is to be a quarterback, yeah, it's hard. They're constantly processing like a million pieces of information in seconds while giant humans are sprinting at them. I couldn't do it. That's for darn sure. Which, I mean, honestly, it's what makes a great quarterback even more impressive. I think that's amazing. Okay, so let's make all of this practical for you. Here are a few real things you can now say during a game without sounding forced. If the defense is, keeps pressuring the quarterback, you can say, they're bringing pressure almost every play. Or after a penalty, they're killing themselves with flags right now. Maybe after an interception, that completely changed momentum. Now, notice something important. You're not trying to sound like smarter than everybody. You're just reacting to what you just saw in the actual game. Now, that's confidence. And once you know these core ideas, you'll naturally pick up a lot more over time. You don't need to force it. You just need enough understanding to start seeing these things over and over again like patterns. So no, again, you don't need to memorize the entire playbook to enjoy football. I know I haven't. You just need like foundational concepts that help the game click because football's really about pressure, timing, momentum, like space, and making decisions. And once you understand those things, you stop feeling intimidated by the sport and you start enjoying it. And honestly, you're probably you're going to surprise yourself with how quickly your confidence just grows. So, if this helped you, all this information, just subscribe because we're going to have more fun football content that makes the game actually understandable without making you feel overwhelmed. I can feel it. You're getting sharper already.